Hello, folks. Welcome to a new episode of Retracing History here on Readout Productions. We're picking up where we left off in the last episode. We're still exploring the grounds of the Pennsylvania Military Museum, which are home to the shrine of the 28th Infantry Division. So if you've not seen that previous episode, be sure to watch that first. There's a lot of cool information and cool artifacts we got to explore. Then you can come here and we can keep exploring together. So without any further delay, let's see what else the museum has to offer. Well, folks, we got us here an M4A1 tank, aka the Sherman, considered one of not the best tanks ever designed in the 20th century and assisted the Allied forces in winning the Second World War. Now, there is a lovely wayside put here by the Pennsylvania Military Museum that I encourage you to read by pausing the video, and then you get to not have to hear me butcher it with my Yinzer accent, which I'm about to do now. Nearly 5,000, wow, we're already off to a good start. Nearly 50,000 M4 Sherman tanks saw service in all theaters of World War II and Korea. They served as the main tank of the United States Army as well as the Marine Corps. Pennsylvania foundries in Coriopolis, Eddiestown, Lebanon, Sharon, Burnham, and Pittsburgh all produced Sherman tank parts during the war. Union steel castings in Pittsburgh made the turret for this tank. This latest version of the Sherman never saw combat in World War II. Its placement here, though, is to honor the 707th Tank Battalion. The 707th supported the 28th Division during the brutal fighting in the Hurtgen Forest in November of 1944. And something else to note, these trees are not indigenous to the property. These were planted here by the Pennsylvania Military Museum to replicate the feeling of being in the Hurtgen Forest, which was the scene of one of the most famous fights that the 28th Division would be involved with. So this is a natural setting for this M4A1. Exhibited here closer to the museum is a marker for those that participated in the Korean War and were part of NATO's forces in Germany at the same time period. Korean War call-up September 1950 through August of 1954. That included the 28th Infantry Division, 28th Division of Artillery, 109th Infantry Regiment, the 110th Infantry, and the 112th Infantry. So this monument's not dedicated to a unit that had casualties in combat, but rather this is dedicated to members of the 109th Field Artillery that were killed in a train wreck outside of Coshocton, Ohio, September 11th, 1950. I have never heard about this before. Definitely gonna have to do research. 33 killed from the 109th Field Artillery. I'm wondering if they were being shuffled across the country to prepare for deployment, either in Korea or being sent over to Europe. This is a wayside talking about the history of the M114A2 towed 155mm howitzer. That was a mouthful. What you need to know is this was a workhorse howitzer that was used not only by the United States Armed Forces, but is still used by a wide variety of other countries. It was created for the Second World War, but saw service in Korea, Vietnam. There was also uses by the Pennsylvania National Guard for the 1980s. And we have an example right here in front of the Pennsylvania Military Museum. Some of the specs down here for those that want to know. It weighs over 12,000 pounds. Of course, the caliber is 155 millimeter. It takes about 11 men to operate and has a maximum range of over 9 miles. The projectiles that come out of these weigh 84 pounds, and its maximum rate of fire, 4 rounds a minute. And it can have a sustained rate of 1 round every minute with a maximum elevation of 63 degrees. Take a look at the breech back here. The crank to elevate and depress the barrel. I'm so used to going to the 18th century historic sites or the 19th century ones and talking about howitzers of muzzle loading manner, not the breech loaders. It's a different perspective. So we got the M142 Duster, which this is essentially a self-propelled gun. It's one big armament for a 40 millimeter here up on the front. The initial idea was that these were going to be able to be used against aircraft, but by the time this came into production in the 1950s, the Soviet Union already had the capabilities to outpace this gun. They had armament that this gun was going to do nothing to it. So it found an alternate use in Vietnam as being used to protect American military convoys. And viewers of the channel may recognize this unit. This monument is dedicated to the 103rd Medical Battalion and Regiment of the 28th Infantry Division. I am lucky enough to have possession of Company B of the 103rd Medical Battalion's company photograph. And if you tune into our live streams, you may make it out over my one shoulder, albeit it's blurry. The bomb bursts that make up each corner of the 103rd monument is to reckon back to when German artillery barrages pounded the hospitals that they were taking care of during the Battle of the Bulge. This is the monument dedicated to the 109th Machine Gun Battalion of the 28th Division, and I appreciate the folks that put this one together as, man, there's a lot of information. The whole story of the unit is on the walls here for this one, going through showing those that were killed in action, from lieutenants down to sergeants, the corporals, the privates, and then we have those that also died of wounds. And it also mentions at the very bottom that 5 were never found, and aptly it puts, they belong to history. We are standing under the muzzle of an M60A3. Its parent tank was constructed in the 1960s, not for Vietnam, but to deter Soviet Union operations along the Iron Curtain during the Cold War. So this was one of the American answers to this T-72. Now this particular one that's at the museum grounds, it was built in 1978 by Chrysler Corporation. There were about 5,000 of these built in the late 70s and early 80s, and it would have saw operation primarily at Fort Indiantown Gap, which is the main training grounds today of the 28th Infantry Division. It's interesting to see the development of these units throughout history. This is the monument for the 109th Infantry. It traces its roots back to what was known as the Wash and Grays, which saw action in the Revolution and the War of 1812. course, they saw action in both World Wars. They also had the 103rd Engineer Combat Battalion. And they also have a lineage going back to the 17th and 119th Pennsylvania Volunteers during the American Civil War. And since I'm a nerd for the obscure conflicts in world history, the 1st Regiment Infantry, which has a tie here to the 109th, they served in the Spanish-American War and the Mexican border dispute in 1916. This obelisk is dedicated to the 2nd Combat Team of the 28th Division, which deployed as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2005. The wind chimes inside are made up of dog tags. Dog tags signifying those that were lost within this combat team. And it's hard to see from here, but the very top is actually Humvee glass that was broken Humvee glass that was broken apart during attacks in Iraq. The largest pair of artifacts in the collection of the Military Museum are these 14-inch guns from the USS Pennsylvania. The battleship was constructed during the First World War, but did not see action on account of being an oil-burning vessel in a day and age when coal was still king. By the time of the Second World War, the age of the battleship was ended with the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor, in which 15 members of the Pennsylvania's crew were killed, but the ship itself was spared from severe damage due to being in dry dock. Battleships like the Pennsylvania would provide coastal bombardment during amphibious landings during the Pacific Theater. In January of 1945, the Pennsylvania was captured in an iconic image leading a row of battleships near the Philippines. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the ship was deemed surplus and used for testing against atomic weapons. So how did 2 of its guns remain standing to this day? In anticipation for the Allied attack on Okinawa, the Pennsylvania's worn-out guns were replaced with one salvaged from the USS Oklahoma. The older guns were sent to storage and were overlooked by the U.S. Navy until the PHMC became aware of their existence in 2002. After negotiations, the guns were brought to Boalsburg for display in 2009. These are not the only vestiges of the battleship preserved here, as one of the ship's bells and several personal effects from the crew are on exhibit inside the museum. Alright guys, we're going to wrap it up here at the Pennsylvania Military Museum, home of the 28th Infantry Division Shrine here in Boalsburg, Pennsylvania. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button down below. If you want to follow us on our future trips, be sure to subscribe here to Readout Productions on the TubeU, or you can follow us on Rumble. We have a Hatebook page, and I also have a Twitter page because I had to have a Twitter page made to do a meme about Confederates. Long story. If you subscribe, you'll learn about that story. So, thank you guys for watching, and I got about a 2-hour drive back. So, I'm going to need some coffee. If you want to support us, go the extra mile and financially support us and keeping us on the road, you can buy us a cup of coffee through the Ko-fi link in the description below. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.